I decided to do a M8 meetup, first time in a long time, to go over some of the new features that are going to be coming out shortly in the 2.5.0 release of the M8 firmware. There's a lot of additions, and so I wanted to go over them in a simple video that just demonstrates them all. So, and if you're not aware, the last version is 2.0.9, and there's so many things in this version, I thought just doing a point increment was not enough. So I decided to call it 2.5 and just jump. So let's get into it. Starting off with some of the simple things. Let's see, the MIDI. Most of these features have been requested features, so I went through the most plausible ones and kind of implemented them. One of the first things that's been asked a lot is the record, delay, and kill options for MIDI input when you add notes into the sequencer. Now instead of on or off, it'll allow you to select either kill, delay, or both delay and kill when it automatically inserts those commands into the sequencer based on what you're playing. The next feature is this mode down here at the bottom. So if you don't know, this track MIDI input is basically for M8 to act like a MIDI module where it just plays back sounds from some other source. This used to say down here legato, I think on, and now it has a mode. Mono is basically no legato. If you have multiple tracks on the same MIDI channel, they'll just all play in unison, which is kind of neat. The same thing with legato, except for if you have overlapping notes, it will slide or not re-trigger that instrument based on your keying. And then finally, poly mode, which means any tracks that share the same MIDI channel will act in a round robin and basically trigger one after another, which is sweet for doing polyphonic stuff. Notice the instrument number can be something else, so you could do something wacky here with that poly mode. Or B, if you send a program change message, they'll all respond. All the same tracks on the same MIDI channel will change their instrument numbers. So what we mean by round robin is I'm sending MIDI channel 1. So it's basically cycling through these 4 channels as I trigger the note. You can see that on the right side of the screen. That's one way to break it, I guess, is changing these channels real time while notes are playing back. You'll get some stuck notes, and to reset it, just hit stop on the M8. Or it'll just break real time after I do that. Okay, well, this is beta 5, so there might be still a bug in it. Let me see. What if I set all these to 1? See what happens. So I should have it when you change this stuff, it'll probably send a note off and kill any notes just to prevent that from happening. Yeah, it looks like channel 3 now is messed up. So if I get rid of channel 3, hey. Yeah, nothing like beta testing in real time in front of everybody. Anyways, so that's MIDI poly mode. the next feature I wanted to show you is what I called dual. What did I call it? There, dual mono input mode. And basically, the line input on the M8 is stereo input. And by default, the volume for that input is right here on the mixer. Now, there's this new secondary little slot right here. And if you start turning it up, it'll now switch the input so that it's two mono signals instead of one single one with their own chorus and delay and reverb settings. So if I turn this off and play a drum beat, you can see they're panned hard left and right. But now if I turn both of them on, whoa. So that's going to be really neat for those of you that have, say, two different instruments that you're controlling via MIDI and you want to route them back into the song. You could do that now. So super handy. It's a feature I long wanted but never had time to implement. And you could disable and enable it just by changing this, value back to dash dash. So along with that, I added in the effects screen is going to look pretty ridiculous now. This screen now has a lot of new commands. But for the moment, I just wanted to show you that there's some new input commands, analog input commands that used to not be available. So there's input volume, the chorus send, delay send, reverb, and now there's input 2, which is the secondary input when you're in dual mono mode. So you could basically sequence the volumes and the sends on the M8, as well as like USB volume. It's kind of a niche use case, but it's there. All right. So let's go over some of the next features here. Let me start a new project just to clear everything out. I'm going to set up a really basic saw wave, maybe. Yeah, let's do that. All right. This next feature is kind of a big one, and it is the scale support. So scale is implemented interestingly in M8. I've given it a lot of thought, and what I decided to do is scale acts very much like Groove in the fact that Groove has, I don't know, what is that, 32 different grooves available. Scale has 16 different scales available per project. But like Groove, scale won't be used, or it'll use scale 00 on every single track unless you specify a scale command for that track to use a different scale. It's the exact same behavior how Groove works, where Groove 00 is always used unless you use a Groove command to change it for that given track. So that means you have 16 different scales to choose from on a project, and you could have each track be its own scale at any given time in the song. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to autofill these out. Maybe I'll keep it at 12, 13. Yeah, let's do this. I'm gonna boop. Is that right? No. Hold on. Give me a minute. See that? No. That there's 12. Oh, I see. So I want this one C5, and then there we go. So I'm just making a track that has, or a phrase that has every single note available. So for scales could be pretty confusing. Basically, you have a key. The key is global. So all these different scales that are loaded in by default, they're all basic scales that are just loaded in on a new project. but key is the same for all of them. Key is kind of like a global definition. But just to make this really simple, I'm going to start turning these off. So you can see it's starting to snap all of those notes to whatever weird scale this is. Let's make it minor. So some of the cool things with scales here is the note entry. You can see there on the little keyboard that it's also locking to that scale. So the advantage of this is if you wanted to stick to major, I just loaded in major, and never have to worry about music ever again. I'm being sarcastic. Your note entry is going to be fixed to that. If you don't want that kind of behavior, the best suggestion is to use the other scales to have snapping and use scale 0 just as default chromatic with everything turned on. That way on your note entry, it'll always be chromatic. But along with, let's go back to minor. I'm just going to load it. Along with the key, whether it's enabled or not, you also get an offset here, which is plus or minus 100 cents and up and down 12 octaves. So if you wanted all your C's like an octave lower, you could do that. Well, if I didn't delete all my notes in here. Let me do this instead. So I'm going to use a pitch command. So the pitch commands are also using scale as well, which is super neat if you want to do a basic kind of rise through the scale. You could do pitch and rep. You can see you get pretty wacky and microtonal by using these offsets. So this was kind of a feature that I got some requests for microtonal, and I got some requests for scales, and this is basically a merger of both in the simplest way I could do it, which I think is effective based on the limitations of the M8 itself. So wait, if I go to macro synth and use the plucked is my favorite kind of example of this. Oops. And you could call the scale. There's a scale command now for setting both the key. You can see there at the bottom of the screen, the key as well as which scale number to load in or to use. So right now it's scale 1. You know, scale 1 is this major. You get the idea. All right, I think that is all for scales unless somebody has... Oh, there's another thing. There's 2 scale commands here. One's for the track, setting the scale and the key for the track, and the other one's global, so it'll globally set all of the tracks to the same key and scale. So if anybody has any questions, let me know, either via chat, etc., and I will answer it on scales. Other than that, I think we're done with it. Wait, I forgot. Scale also works with MIDI out instrument as well as the FM synth, and it's super powerful with the FM synth. And I'll do that right now, or I forget. So I'm setting the FM synth to do the algorithm where it's basically no longer an FM synth. It's basically just a 4 oscillator synthesizer. You know the drill if you know the drill. Setting up 4 saw waves, sorry. And I'm going to assign pitch to 4 of them. So 3 to pitch, 2 to pitch, 1 to pitch. And then I'm going to do some kind of basic offset here for those mods. I forget what scale we're in, so I'm going to go back to scale. Well, yeah, I'm going to reset this scale so I don't lose my mind. Chromatic. So this is with scales turned off. It's just doing, the root note +2, +4, and +6, so it's going to sound terrible. But if I set this to, say, minor, so now we're in C minor, basically. And so we could set these up to do different, C plus, and then FE maybe. There we go. See, FM3. Let's do, maybe this will cause chaos. If I change the scale from minor to major, or something more unique. So it's pretty interesting. So I don't know if I missed any questions. I was busy staring at the screen. But let me see if I missed anything.
I'm pretty sure we're all just freaking out over it.
Yeah, just everyone saying, "Oh my God."
Okay, so that's scales. Super, really, for me personally, I wasn't really sold on scales being that cool. But once I started dabbling with the FM synth and especially doing like rep commands and pitch and all of that being in the scale, then I realized it's kind of like a weird creative tool for coming up with things that I would normally not do. And for that, I found that to be super powerful. let's see what else we got for new things on the beta, on the 2.50. Used to saying that. So I'm going to create a new project and show some of the sample stuff. Bear in mind, some of this might glitch out on my display that I'm streaming because it's a lot of data to go through, and I haven't really tested this. But let me first show you. Let me first show you the loop marker support for WAV files. So actually, no, I'm going to show you the slice markers. So slice markers are also, commonly referred to as just cue markers in a WAV file, and WAV files support them. You'll find some audio editors will allow you to add those, and some won't. But on M8, we're limited, just because of memory, we're limited to 32 slice markers per sample. And that information is stored inside of the WAV file. So if I wanted to do, let's not do the bass, let's do a drum, some kind of drum thing. Packs. This is kind of a stock SD card, so there's not much in here. See, drum loops. Ooh. So I've broken several of these in testing, which is why you see that failed message. That one might be good. All right. So you have access to the 32 markers right down here. And for each of them, you could set the position just by dialing in this way. Same with doing a selection in the file, which is very tedious. I also down here changed the whole process menu because I ran out of screen real estate. So this is kind of a, oops, I didn't mean to crop. This is kind of a drop-down menu of sorts where you hold down A or hold down Edit and you use left or right to change which process you want to do. And then when you want to do that process, you just hit it again and it'll do it. So I'm gonna do, there's a bunch of slice options here. There's slice auto, which is kind of not really great right now, but it tries to do, transient detection on the file. See what it came up with this time. It seemed like it worked on this file okay, but sometimes it works like terribly. So me hitting that slice auto just, auto sliced and added a bunch of cue markers. You can see how well it worked by kind of zooming in. So it worked okay. So those are the slice markers. Normally, if I'm dealing with probably something more organic and like a real drum beat, I would probably say, there's, 16 beats in this loop. So I'm going to set it to 16 here and slice it. And then that way I have 16 even divisions to then, if I need to adjust their positions individually, I could do it that way. That's probably the normal way to use this this process feature for automatically adding markers. Another way, of course, is by you using external software and already having those markers in. So let's say slice 16. I'm going to save over the original file. Whoa, that's not on my display. That's that's the remote display freaking out. But so now there's markers inside of this file, and I set slice to 1, and it'll start using the markers in that file. So, well, in theory, maybe it doesn't. Wait, yeah, I broke something. Hold on. Let me go back to this file real quick and make sure I saved it. Oh wait, hold on. Live beta testing. Slice auto. And then overwrite the original file. And then go to here. There we go. So I probably screwed up that process, but you get the idea. Now we have markers and we could play those points. Another thing that the markers allow you to do is there's now a slice command, which allows you to just, you don't have to use slice mode at all. You could turn slice mode off if you wanted to. and just go through the markers that way. Yeah. Let's see. That's slice markers, 32 of them. It's inside the wave files. So if you edit or change them, you need to save the wave file. It'll tell you. Are you sure you want to leave and not save changes if you haven't saved those changes? But let me show you the loop marker too. Samples, synths. How about that one? Edit. So I'm going to use. This is interesting. This file has it's basically 4 notes. 4 different notes of like a CZ1 electric bass preset. I'm going to slice it into auto, I guess will probably work here. So I have all 4 of them. But I'm not even going to use the slice marker. I only did that so that way I basically auto selected the first sample. And then now I could go back to crop it. And I'm just dealing with the first sample. Instead of having to manually select that area, just kind of did that automatically. I'm going to set up a loop region here. See that, and then zoom in. I don't really care about zero crossing too much. So this one right here. Yeah, that's close enough. I'm going to call this something else and save it somewhere else. All right. So now that marker, that file has loop markers in it, so we can turn it into for loop mode or any loop mode. It'll just use that. All right. Let's see, what else is new? Unless anybody has any questions. I'm going to assume we don't have any questions and just move on then. So there's a couple new effects commands. Let's reset. So one of them is the long requested pitch bend, bend note command, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it'll continually bend the sound up or down depending on the amount. It'll just continually bend it. And what's interesting there is you see it also reflecting on the little mini keyboard. So if I wanted to do all right, that's a terrible line, but you know, in typical fashion, if I wanted to have this note bend upward to the D sharp there. You get the idea. Useful feature to have. I don't know why it took so long for us to add it, but it's there. Let's see, there's global transpose. Where is it at? There it is. So there's now a command for controlling this project transpose number, essentially. You get the idea. What else? Give me a moment here. Song effects command. This one's really weird. I hate using. Let me load a demo or something. About this one. So say if I had an isolated part here. Oh, let me see. Boop. And I want this to jump across over to here. You can now do that. I say that with confusion because this command's kind of weird. There's now a song position command, and it's per track, which makes this example terrible. But let's see, what's a good track to do it to? But it allows you basically to play anywhere inside of the song from the phrase. It's kind of like hop, only it refers to the song. That's a terrible synth. Let's see. Let me just do it this way. Oops. No. Looking for something interesting here. That's not really interesting. There we go. This one. So if I wanted this all of a sudden to jump on phrase 2 to a new song position, I could do that. Song hop. So it's a relative thing. So if I want to go +2, then it's going to be +2, and then negative would go -2. So if I played this, it would in theory jump to here on 2. That's exactly what it did. Okay, that's good. So let me go plus. So this is kind of an advanced command, but it might be useful for somebody that's doing kind of like random song generation, you know, that kind of stuff. So. What was that? I heard nothing. It's a very powerful feature, but for me to demo it right now, I feel like I'd have to set up something specific for its specific use case, and I really can't think of it. But it's there, so you have fun with that. So let's see. A fundamental change here in... Let's go back to that phrase here. This is another change, but this is kind of more of a fundamental change. Back before this version, if I wanted to do a repeating pattern like this, and I copy and then I start pasting it, as soon as I got to here, it would paste over the beginning of the phrase and I would lose all my work. Now it doesn't do that anymore. So there's no more wrapping around to the beginning nonsense. I never liked that feature, and I don't know why I decided to actually implement that. Instead, what you can do is if you have a selection, if you want to do nudging or wrapping, if you just make a selection that is more than one column wide and more than one row long, you could just hold edit down and you could literally just scroll it up or down for doing nudging, which I think is fundamentally better than doing the accidental paste back to the beginning and lose all your work thing. But it could just be me. So regardless, I decided to add it in because I was getting really annoyed by losing some work. Hopefully you guys will agree with me on that one. This works in both phrase and table. It's the same kind of thing. You don't lose your work if it's pasted over. You can just nudge it around. So table might be a little bit more nonsensical, but in phrase, generally working with notes, I find that it's way more useful to not overwrite my previous work. All right. Next feature is the fonts. Or font. It's actually just one font. The font is upgraded. If you can see on my screen, the zeros I had alternate. So this is the old /0 that you see here. Then there's an alternate with the dot in the middle instead of the slash. There is lowercase, which is literally just the lowercase font set of this font. with some tweaks by ESS at Fours. He did a video a long time ago, and I saw it, and I'm like, oh, that lowercase version of my font looks way better than mine. So I asked permission, and they gave it. So lowercase has lowercase with /0s or lowercase with an alt-0. You see the alt-0 here is just an O, essentially, without the dot. And the reason being is there's no reason to make the O distinguished in lowercase because there is no O versus 0 issue in lowercase. Lowercase to me seems a little hard to read, like squished together, but it's kind of cute. It might be kind of cute in the web display and that kind of stuff. But on the screen itself, to me, things look a little bit too cramped. But it's there if you want to use it. So what else is new? Finally, I want to show you one last thing. So we got this limiter settings. I added a new mode. I don't know if I've explained this in previous videos, but I'll go over it one more time. Limit, clip, sinusoidal, and fold and wrap. All of those work before the filter, so you don't really get any filter distortion by using those. And then post does the amplification after the filter, so it kind of distorts the filter a bit. Let me turn this down a little bit because it's going to get kind of loud. Right, so that's always been there, and you can see what happens in post. It's essentially the same thing as clip. It literally just chops the top and bottom of the waveform that extends past the given range. Now there's a new one called Post AD, which is quote unquote analog drive, and instead of clipping, it does a bit of a smoother look to it. And it goes into more extreme values, so it can get pretty brutal really quickly. Now, what I really like doing with this one is more of kind of the kick drums and that kind of stuff sounds really cool. So if I do a sample of classic 909. Oop. Yeah, how about this one? So I'm going to do Post AD, turn up a bit. I'm going to turn on the filter just to add a bunch of harmonics here. You can see it gets pretty brutal. If I use the old post, just totally destroys the low end bass. But in post, yeah. So it sounds really great on a lot of different stuff, and I tend to use it way more now than I don't think I use actually post anymore. But I can't get rid of post because I don't want to change old songs. So it's still there, but post analog drive, quote unquote. It's not necessarily analog, obviously, but it's using a tan, so it just has a smoother clipping. Also, the range is obviously goes much further than just normal post. So I think that's it. I think that's all of the major changes. There's a bunch of bug fixes. Not really that many, but maybe a handful. If anybody has any questions, shoot them to me now. I don't know if I missed anything. Oh, somebody said, Avracadabra said THO. So, I mean, that's kind of a footnote. But it's important. In table, you could use hop to hop back in the beginning of the table, or that this is going to be hilarious to use it with this. Let me turn down the volume a bit so I could talk over it. Hop just allows that single column to loop back to the beginning. And THO acted the exact same way. THO is normally used in phrase to hop the table's position outside of the table, in phrase. And in table, THO was basically just a pass-through to hop, or an alias, if you like. But now it's not. Now THO has a purpose, and that is to hop all of the rows here, as opposed to just one of them. And what makes this kind of interesting is if I did THO 00 and then a bunch of rands. Let's do rand 0, I think. Like if you wanted to do something like this and have all of those rows, let me do table tick 00. So that kind of allows that kind of stuff where you want all of the rows to be locked together for that random, so you actually can put in some commands that are locked to a given note. Might be more useful for stuff like slice, etc. But I just had that random idea that, hey, that would be cool if THO did this. So there you go. So if old songs that use THO in table automatically get migrated to switch to hop, because it used to just be an alias for hop essentially. But yeah, useful. Thanks for that reminder, Avracadabra. Do I have any other questions?
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's been a sprint. Try to get all the stuff that I asked on Patreon a while ago, like if anybody had any features, like now's your time to let me know. I went through a lot of them, but the reality was I wanted to see like kind of what were the most popular things. And I already had some stuff on my list of future features that I was going to do at some point, possibly. And so I wanted to see what lined up and get some of the feature requests kind of situated and out of the way for the next batch of units. By the way, the next batch of units is available in January. I currently have all of the parts, and I'm already starting assembly. So sometime in January, sales will be open again. Micro-tuning is in there. Somebody asked. Micro-tuning would be nice. So that's part of the scale right here. These offsets basically allow you to go plus or minus 24 with, 100th adjustment. So that's about as close as I could get. So for those of you that just joined the stream, this will be on YouTube, etc. as well. So you'll find it there on the Dirty Wave channel. So if anybody doesn't have any other questions, I think we're good. Okay, I guess we don't have any more questions. So thanks everybody again for joining me. And I hope, somebody asked when's 2.5 supposed to be released. As soon as the beta is done, which is, if you don't know, on our Discord channel in the beta beta testing channel. We're on beta 5 right now. There might be a couple more bugs that I'm missing. So my hope is sometime this week, essentially. But it all depends on if there's anything major that I need to fix before then. Cool. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining me. Somewhat unscheduled and randomly on this Sunday. So hope you all have a good rest of the weekend or beginning of your week, depending on where you're at. And have a good one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tim.
No problem. Goodbye, everybody.